occasion of his birthday celebration on the following Sunday. There was an important discussion we were having in our previous interaction, which was 2 weeks from now. Apparently, the Thakur's discussion seems to be not relevant to the events, but on deep introspection it turns out that it is very significant. The incident reported was that Narendranath was present in the congregation. The recorder of the Gospel, Master Mahashaya, has narrated this in the 16th volume of the 5th section of the Ramakrishna Kathamrita. Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, Part 5, 16th section, and under subsection of 2. It is in the second volume of the Hindi translation, Sri Sri Ramakrishna Vacharamrit, 206, section 2, and under chapter 33 of the chronologically presented English translation. Sri Ramakrishna was looking at Narendranath, who was visibly disturbed by his then financial crisis. The background is Narendranath at that time lost his father. We all know that his father was a very wealthy man and an advocate, but unfortunately he didn't have much financial deserve. And Narendranath was the eldest son, having no financial earning for the family, was in deep crisis. So this is a common problem in our life, especially for spiritually oriented people. They face a challenge in life and they seek a spiritual solution for their secular problem. This is the topic. Very important and interesting. Often a question comes in our mind that those who are good people, spiritually oriented people, first of all, why should they suffer secular problems in life? Number one. And then secondly, how God comes to their rescue. They worship God, they call on God. Is God indifferent to their mundane problems? And thirdly, whether you can find some spiritual solution for their secular problems. Under this scenario, we find that Sri Ramakrishna is watching Narendranath, who just sang a few songs to the delight of all. Sri Ramakrishna appreciated and thanked him. But it is to a surprise that Sri Ramakrishna did not express any sympathy for his predicament. This is very interesting. Even if we know a person who is in distress, the minimum thing is this: we show a courtesy in exchanging words of sympathy to share his grief. And Narendranath was his closest associate. The description says he was 23 years old at that time, and he is always worried about his financial problem. He was a student, but he didn't know how to continue his studies, and he has a keen desire to read these Vedanta scriptures, which has become jeopardized because of the present financial crisis. And Sri Ramakrishna is looking at Narendranath with great affection. But his reaction is quite different. Instead of showing sympathy, Sri Ramakrishna is smiling. That why are you worried? You are like the sky. How these things affect you? I am saying that you are the cow. Why are you so much worried? However, you have to worry about the taxes. That is your trouble, financial problem. Now he quotes a similar incident in the life of another devotee, Krishna Kishore. He was a follower of Vedanta and always saying that he is the Atman, which is true. But he used to prefer to dwell on this thought that he is the Atman. One day Sri Ramakrishna went to his house and found that he is deeply worried. He said, "What has happened to you?" He said that the tax collector came, and because I could not pay the taxes, he has threatened that he would sell all my equipments, the utensils of my house, to pay for the taxes. That's why I am worried. Sri Ramakrishna said, "You say that you are the cow, the sky, you are the spirit, you are the Atman. Then how are you worried? Let them come and take away the equipments, but they cannot do anything to you." Now here we have to understand Sri Ramakrishna's apparent solution apparently seems to us very rude. It's very easy to say that I am the sky, but how do you face the problem? Now Sri Ramakrishna says about, suddenly, Sri Krishna told Arjuna, if you have any one of the occult powers, then you may have some strength, but you will not reach God. You cannot attain God by occult powers. By occult powers you may have some strength, some money, some resources, but you cannot attain God. So these two ideas are apparently unrelated. That Siddhai, an instruction to Arjuna, and problem of financial crisis of Narendranath or Krishna Kishore seems to be unrelated. But when you ponder deeply, we understand why Sri Ramakrishna raised this topic here. Within our mind there is always a query that whether spiritual life can help us solve our secular problems. इसे एक आदमी तो बहुत धर्म प्राण है, उसके जीवन में क्यों इतने विपर्यय आते हैं? Now we have to understand, life is one. Spiritual life and secular life are not two dimensions of a life. Life is one. This is all a spiritual life. So we have to consider life as a totality. But we have to understand that our spiritual life is meant to have spiritual end. Spiritual life should not be abused for secular end. When you have a secular problem, say for example financial problem, then obviously we go to God to help us to solve the secular difficulty, which is wrong. Secular life and spiritual life are two phases of our existence, and secular life should be conducive for our spiritual life, not the other way around. Secular life should help us to move towards spiritual end, not the other way around. The spiritual life should help us to gain our spiritual end, to gain our secular end. In this scenario, the subject of Siddhai comes here. When a person gains some advancement in spiritual life, then the scriptures say he attains some occult powers. We know there are 8 types of occult powers, which we discussed. But since they are 3 weeks from now, let me quickly recapitulate. What are these occult powers which becomes natural for a spiritual aspirant? They are Anima, Mahima Chaiva, Garima, Laghima Tatha, Prapti, Prakamyam, Ishittam, Bashittam, Cha Ashta Siddhayaha. These are the 8-fold occult powers. Anima means the power to condense one to a minute structure, and the other way round, opposite, the power to expand one to a huge form. As has been said in the praise of Hanumanji, Hanuman Chalisa, सूक्ष्म रूप धरी सिंह दिखावा, बिकट रूप धरी लंका जरावा. He condensed his form, this anima, and appeared before Sita Ma in Ashokvan, so that she is not afraid. And on the other hand, he took a huge form, Mahima, and burnt Sri Lanka to ashes. So these are the Ashtasiddhi. Ashtasiddhi now Nidike Dasa, Asavara Dina Janaki Mata. Janaki Mata gave Hanumanji this boon of eightfold occult powers, with which he performed the duties for Sri Rama. Ramachandra ki Kaja Savari. So these are the two main occult powers in Ashtasiddhi. Similarly, there is Garima Laghima Tata, the power to make oneself heavy and also make oneself light. Light so much he can fly. We are bound by the gravitational force so that we cannot move. But if we can nullify the gravitational force, then we are light, we can fly. So that power is there. You can fly, you can go anywhere. And then there is Prapti, that is, he can appear at the same time in different places. As we found, Sri Ramakrishna, while staying in Dakshineshwar, he appeared in Dhaka simultaneously. And Vijay Krishna Goswami narrated later on that while he was in Dhaka, he saw Sri Ramakrishna. He came and narrated before Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna did not deny. He just endorsed saying, Bolo ki go, what a surprise. And Vijay Krishna Goswami says that it was not a dream. He touched the body of Sri Ramakrishna, pressed it, and found that it is alive. A live appearance of Sri Ramakrishna in Dhaka, which is the capital of Bangladesh now, and he is staying on the outskirts of Calcutta at the same time. That is Prapti, Anashtasiddhi. And then sixth is Prakamyam. Prakamyam means the power to satisfy one's desire, whatever wants. That is very dangerous and risky. If you have any sensual desire, that also you can satisfy. So that's why it is said that these occult powers are often the reason for downfall. Unless one has tremendous character, one cannot withstand these provocations, these allurements, and then one gets deranged, deflated, and degenerated in spiritual life. So here, am I audible? Can you hear me? So here, seventh is Ishitvam, the power to govern everybody. God is called Isha, Prabhu, Prabhutva. Power to govern, that's why he is called Prabhu. He can govern everybody. And eighth is Bashitvam, the power to bring anybody under the subjugation, under one's control. Sri Ramakrishna used to exhibit these powers now and then, whenever necessary. You can remember that when one Pandit came and he had an occult power to put his supremacy by uttering a mantra. Seeing him, Sri Ramakrishna could understand his power, and he simply touched him, and immediately he became fused. He had to accept the supremacy of Sri Ramakrishna. So these are the occult powers. Now Sri Ramakrishna says that when a person has advanced in spiritual life, then let alone occult powers, he can exercise his spiritual capability and try to derive at the secular solution. Narendranath could encash his spiritual acumen for his secular end. But Sri Ramakrishna is forbidding that if you have these occult powers, then you may get all the secular benefits. As he said, you can have power, wealth, satisfy your desires, but you will not get God. The goal of God is realization of God, the goal of life. That should not be forgotten. That should not be compromised with all these occult powers on the way. These are the pitfalls for spiritual life. When a person advances in spiritual life, these powers, these extra spiritual qualities accumulate, but they should never be misused, abused. Then your spiritual growth is stopped. You may gain in secular life, but that becomes counterproductive for your spiritual journey. This is the message Sri Ramakrishna gives. And next, Sri Ramakrishna tells Narendranath one golden advice. He says that you go beyond knowledge. Now we are all told that we must acquire knowledge in order to dispel darkness, agyan. Agyan, ignorance, is the cause of our bondage. In order to dispel ignorance, agyan, we must have the light of knowledge. ज्ञान का रोशनी से अज्ञान का अंधकार दूर करना चाहिए. That's why we pray to our Guru, अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जन शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. She is always told that acquisition of knowledge is a positive aspect of our spiritual life. In order to build our spiritual life, we must acquire knowledge. But here Sri Ramakrishna says, you must go beyond knowledge. That is to be understood. The Narendranath was now keen to acquire Vedantic knowledge. It has been mentioned that he was keen in acquisition of more Vedantic knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna is forewarning him that acquisition of knowledge is not the goal of life. The goal of life is to realize God. For that, you have to go beyond knowledge. জ্ঞান অজ্ঞানের পারে যাও. He used to give a very popular example that if you have a thorn in your leg, in order to remove the thorn, you collect another thorn. And after removal of the original thorn, what you do with the second thorn? You dispense with them both. अज्ञान का कांटा हटाने के लिए ज्ञान का कांटा लाओ और अज्ञान का कांटा उठाने से बाद दोनों कांटा ही फेंक दो. Give up both jnana. This jnana is also a thorn. Jnana is also a thorn. He gives an example that Rishi Vashishta was a storehouse of knowledge. ज्ञान का भंडार थे. Now, one day he was found weeping, shedding profuse tears for the loss of his son. He had a son and his son died. The son died, then Vashishta was naturally deeply grieved. He was weeping profusely. Seeing his condition, Lakshmana told Rama that, brother, look at him. ही ज्ञान का भंडार है पर ये रो रहे हैं. The ज्ञानी must know there is no death. The Atman never dies. His son is Atman. He has never, he cannot die. He knows this. But nevertheless, he is weeping for the loss of his son like an ordinary person, like an ajnani. For a common people, common person, it is understandable. ठीक है, वो कोई मर गया. और जो ज्ञानी है, जिसको पता है कि न हन्नति हन्न माने शरीरे, then why should he be grief stricken? Sri Ramakrishna says, Rama told Lakshmana, भाई जिनको ज्ञान है उसका अज्ञान भी है. जिनका सुख बोध है उसका दुख बोध भी है. तुम ज्ञान अज्ञान के पारे चले जाओ. वो बियॉन्ड नॉलेज एंड इग्नोरेंस. He who has knowledge also has the feeling of ignorance. How is this we have to understand? It's a very tricky point, because in all our scriptural treatises, books, the spiritual discipline has been defined as acquisition of virtues. ज्ञान आहरण करना पड़ेगा, धर्म पालन करना पड़ेगा. We have to, these are the spiritual disciplines. शौच संतोष तपः स्वाध्याय ईश्वर प्रणिधान नियमाः. These are the disciplines we have to acquire. The cleanliness, then tapaha, then Ishwar Pranidhanana, Swadhyaya, study of scriptures, acquisition of knowledge, these are all recommended. But here it is being told, you have to dispense with them. That we have to understand. What is the secret? Now, it is necessary for, to a certain extent, till it dispels our ignorance. And having dispelled the ignorance, its purpose is over. Even then, if we retain them, then that becomes counterproductive. Gyan has a purpose. The thorn has a purpose. Thorn has no value on its own. The thorn has been brought in order to take away the thorn of ignorance. And when the original thorn is removed, then both should be dispensed with, because then it becomes counterproductive for my ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is not to acquisition of knowledge. That inflates our ego. What is this harm? What is the harm of having knowledge? Then it inflates the ego. it is no more necessary for us. It is harmful because it takes our attention away from God. So the feeling that I am good, feeling that I am pure, so that feeling takes us away from the God consciousness. That is the point. Now, we have three gunas: Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Now, Tamas degrades us. It is inertia. It is the Lakshana is that Jadata, Mudata, Alasya, inaction, dullness, delusion. So this has to be nullified with Rajas, which is action, dynamism. But then Rajas has negative aspects also, which is desire and restlessness. These should be nullified by Sattva. Sattva elevates us. So by the Sattvic mentality, by tranquility of the mind, quietening the mind, we nullify the harmful effects of activity, desire, action, and mental instability. So when that mental instability is controlled by our sattva, then what is to be done? The sattva too to be dispensed with. That is the point here. Sri Ramakrishna says that sattva, rajas, tamas, all the three are dacoits, they are robbers. They take away our attention from our goal. So sattva should be adhered to nullify the effects of rajas and tamas, and when they are nullified, they are neutralized, then sattva too should be made goodbye, or else you cannot reach the destination. Sattva takes you in the forest. There is a story. The forest, one person was strangulated by three robbers. So one person said, you kill him. That is tamas, because it kills us, it destroys us. Another person said, no, let us not kill, let us bind him down. That is rajas, it binds us down in various actions and desires. And the third person who came after these two persons gone to unopen his bondage. Sattva makes us free from the bondages of tamas and rajas. And then sattva takes us. He said, you come with me, I will show you the way out of the forest. And when he reaches the end of the forest, he says, here, look, there is the way for your destination. Go and go to your home. He said, why don't you come? You are such a great friend. He said, no, I cannot go because I am also a thief. I am also a bondage. The bondage of sattva is the last bondage we have. But that also we must give up for the sake of God. That's why it is said we must become gunatita, transcend all the gunas. So here Sri Ramakrishna says, go beyond the pairs of opposites, jnana agyan, sukh dukh, bhalo mando, adhar alok, light and darkness, pleasure and pain, good and bad, and knowledge and ignorance. When you give up all these, and then finally you become merged with God and God alone. There is nothing in between. So first thing he said that spiritual forces should not be abused for making secular solutions, and secondly he says we must transcend the pairs of opposites, because we should never forget that the goal of life is to realize God. These virtues, they help us in the preliminary journey, but later on they become an impediment. That is very, very interesting and important point in our spiritual input. That's what Sri Ramakrishna says to Narendranath. Sri Ramakrishna takes this subject further in the interaction, which we will consider in our next Sunday class. Niranjanam nityam anantarupam bhaktanukampa vigraham vai Ishāvataram parameshamidyam tam Ramakrishnam shirasa namama. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Two weeks from now, we'll have a national seminar on Swami Vivekananda and the independence of India. You know that there is a national agenda going on. हमारे स्वाधीनता के अमृत महोत्सव, platinum jubilee of our Independence Day, and the contribution of Swami Vivekananda in this. So there will be a national seminar on 31st July from 9 to 5. All of you are welcome in the hybrid system. Those who can come, fine. Those who cannot, they will be served through our YouTube channel. Very distinguished set of speakers will come. And the topic is Amrit Bharat Swami Vivekananda. It will be Hindi, but on a national forum. So on 31st July, we will not have this usual Sunday class, but next Sunday we will be having 24th. We close now with the chanting of the Lord. Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om Ramakrishna, Hari Om. Hari Om Ramakrishna. Krishna Hari Om Ramakrishna Hari Om Ramakrishna Hari Om Hari Om Ramakrishna Hari Om Ramakrishna Hari Om Ramakrishna Hari Om.